Hello and welcome to a brand new Minecraft Bedrock Edition tutorial and showcase of the MCBEPlay Bedrock Edition server or dedicated server software that I've been making for the Bedrock Edition of Minecraft in order to run servers and do things like saving and auto restarts and backups and all that sort of thing. If you're not really sure what I'm talking about, if we hop to Minecraft Bedrock Edition and go to our server list, you can have custom servers using the official Mojang Bedrock Dedicated Server software that they have released on their website. It's the software that we use for Truly Bedrock as well as my VIP and friend patron worlds, and basically it means that you can play kind of like having a realm but without actually needing to pay for it. You can run it all from your own system at home. You can leave it open and anybody can come and join as they want to. So today we're going to look at how we actually go about setting one up. So we're going to hop over to FoxyNoTail.com, which is my website, and click on the downloads page button, which is on the home page, and that's going to take us to another page full of links, and the second one down says MCBEPlay Bedrock Dedicated Server. If we click on that, we're going to get to a page with a big README file that's built into the page, and the reason I've put that on the page is so that you've got an easy access to the instructions on how to set this thing up, because if you're not used to doing things like this, it's not the most obvious thing in the world how to do, and that's not really my fault. That's kind of how Bedrock Edition server software kind of works. So yeah, if you go right down to the bottom, you will get to the MCBEPlay version 3.5.zip file. If we click on that, that will download, and then what we're going to need to do is make a folder on our C drive called MCBEPlay. Now, it doesn't have to be on your C drive and it doesn't have to be called that. We could make this folder anywhere, but just for the sake of easiness, we're going to put it there, and we're going to go to our downloads, which are here, and we're going to right click on it and go to Open Archive. And all I'm going to do is drag the files that are inside the folder in there into this one here. So now, on my C drive, in the MCBEPlay folder, I have these files: bds.exe, mcbeplay.exe, options.txt, and readme. Now, the readme is exactly the same as what you'll see on the website behind it. I might update this from time to time as different versions come out. That's not necessarily essential, but what is essential are these three other files. So now that we've got this set up, what we need to do inside this folder is create a new folder, and I'm going to call it BDS, stands for Bedrock Dedicated Server. Again, you can call that whatever you like. Press enter, go into that folder, and now what we're going to do is go to the download file for the actual dedicated Bedrock server software that is official from Minecraft.net. If we go to this page, the left hand side is the one we want. We're working on Windows 10. This is not for Ubuntu or Linux. This is all for Windows 10. Click agree, click download, and that's going to go into your downloads folder unless it comes up with a prompt asking you where you want to save it. You can choose wherever you want to save it to. And we're going to come back to our BDS folder. We're going to go back into our downloads page, and we are going to do the same thing. Right click that, open the archive, and we're going to drag all of those things out of that zip file into that BDS folder there. So they're all in there. We can then close the zip file, close our downloads folder, and the first thing we're going to do in here is just run the actual Bedrock server itself and make sure that's running. Now, at this point, you can try and connect to it from your local computer. And the way you would do that is you would come into Minecraft, you go to Play Servers, add a server, and you can call it whatever you want, but we're going to call it localhost. We're going to give it the IP address, which is the IP address that is just basically loops the computer round to your computer, so it's always going to be that if it's on your computer. And the port is the default port. Because we've not fiddled with it, that's what it will be at the moment. We're going to save that, and we're going to see if we can access it. Now, you'll see that I can access it. I can get straight in there, but you might not be able to the first time you load this up, and we'll have a look why. Going back to the BDS folder that we created, if we go down to the Bedrock server how-to.html and click that, that's going to open up in our browser, and this bit here says that if we want to run it on the same system as our actual client or our game, we need to basically run this command in a command prompt window. So it says, on some systems, when you wish to connect the server using a client on the same machine as the server is running on, you will need to exempt the Minecraft client from UWP loopback restrictions. And what you do for that, if you hit your Windows key and press R at the same time, you'll get this little run box, and if you just do CMD in there, you'll get a command prompt. Now, this isn't an elevated command prompt, it's just a basic one. If we copy and paste that into there, then you'll see it says OK. Now, if that doesn't work, you might need to open up an elevated command prompt, which means that you'll need to open it with administrator privileges. Now, I can't show you that as part of the video because my video capture software doesn't show that part of my screen. But if you know what I'm talking about, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, if you do that and it says OK and it's successful, you will be able to log in to the server from the same computer the server's running on. But we don't need to do any of that right now. In fact, what we need to do is go back to our server console and type in stop. That's going to close the server. And we're going to go back to our BDS folder. We're going to go one step back to our MCBEPlay folder, and we're going to go into the options.txt file. There are some really important options in here that need to be right, and these are these top ones here. The first one is the server file. Now that needs to be the exact same name as the server file inside the BDS folder. So this Bedrock server here, that needs to be the same. If you want to run multiple servers and you want to be able to tell which one's which, then you can change that. You can call that server 1 if you want to, but if you change that, you need to call it server 1 in here as well. But we're not going to call it server 1, we're going to leave it as it is for now, which is bedrockserver.exe. The next one is the server dir, or server directory, which is basically the path to wherever this bedrock server.exe file is. The easiest way to get that is on Windows 10. If you click that little folder there and then just press Ctrl and C to copy that, you can go in there and just replace that. So if you haven't got this on your C drive in the MCBEPlay folder, if you put it somewhere else, you need to put that path in there. The next one is the world directory, which again is really important, and that's this one here, world. If you haven't already run the Bedrock Server EXE program like we did before, this directory won't exist, which is why it's important to run that first. Again, if we double click on that, hit that icon there and do Control C to copy that, we can paste that into there. And these next two are not particularly important. This says where it's going to save your backups for the server and where it's going to save your logs for the server, and they can be anywhere on any drive as long as you've got write access to them. So in a minute, you'll see those will be automatically generated wherever we actually put that. So at the moment, these are pointing into this folder here, but if we didn't want them in there, we could put them somewhere else, and when we run our MCBEPlay file there, they will get automatically generated. So I'm going to leave those as they are, and we're going to save our options file, and we're going to close that for now. And we're going to double click on MCBEPlay.exe. The BDS.exe one, you'll never need to click on that. That's going to get run internally from this one, but they're both very important. So if we click on that, you may well get your virus scanner saying, ooh, this is dodgy software, get rid of it. It's not, it's perfectly fine. It's just because it's not well known on the internet because not many people have it. Because at the moment, only I have it because I've not shared it yet. But as of today, we'll be sharing this, so it will get some reputation around the internet. So I'm going to say run this program anyway. And that has opened up behind there, and this is what's called a GUI, which is basically your user interface for the server. And we've got a few options here. We've got start, stop, restart, save, rollback, open folder, BDS options, server properties, reload whitelist, reload permissions, view logs, and view saves. We've got quite a lot of options. We've also got auto rollbacks and keep alive server, and you'll see there are some links down here as well to my website, my YouTube channel, and my Discord page in case you need to get hold of me. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to just make sure the BDS options button works. We'll click on that, and that should bring up a text file with the options that you've just changed in there. That's worked perfectly well. The server properties one, when we click on that, should do the same thing, but this is now accessing the file that's inside our BDS folder here, which is called server.properties. Now, if this doesn't come up, then it means the links that you put in the options file are not working correctly. So now you've got the options to your server properties. You can change this to suit how you want your server set up. At the moment, it's defaulted. The server name is Dedicated Server. I'm going to call it Foxy's Server. We're going to have it in survival. We're going to have it in hard mode. And we're going to allow cheats just for the sake of the demonstration of this video. Max players 10. Online mode is true. You have that on false. That will allow people that aren't actually logged into their Microsoft account to actually log onto your server. So it's a little bit less secure. So we're going to leave that on true. We're going to leave the whitelist off for now. The whitelist allows you to say that you only want particular people to be able to play. That's really important, so you don't get just random people finding your server and joining it and griefing your world. But we're going to leave it off for the demonstration of this video. The server port is which port it's actually going to broadcast to on the internet. Now, whatever port you set, you need to make sure that your computer and your router has those ports open and that the router is forwarding those ports to your PC. Now, if you want to look at ports forwarding and NAT types and all that sort of stuff, there's loads of stuff on Google for that. I'm not going to get into that. If you don't understand what that means, then you probably shouldn't be running a server. But yeah, Google ports forwarding in order to look at how you set your router up to make sure that your router is pointing the right port at your computer so that people can access your world. If you get this all running 100% correctly and people can't actually see it online and can't access it, it's probably a port forwarding issue. So check Google for that, or check the manufacturer of your router. The view distance is how many chunks you can see in the world. Now, it's currently set to 32, which is very high, and if you've got a lot of people on your server, it's going to get very laggy, particularly if you don't have a very powerful device. So I recommend setting that to 16 and seeing how you get on. The tick distance is the simulation distance around your player. That's how far away from your player in chunks that things like redstone will be activated and grass will grow and stuff like that. Leave it on 4. That's a good average. You won't have too many issues running that on floor. Player idle timeout is how long if a player is idle for before they get kicked. If you set that to 0, then you can AFK permanently on your server without getting kicked out from it, which means you can AFK forever. If you don't want people to AFK forever, then put a time in there and that will kick them out after that amount of time. The rest of it, you can pretty much leave alone. You've got the level name. This is Bedrock level here. Now, if we go back to our BDS folder and our worlds directory, that is this folder. So if you change that, you need to change this as well, or when you start a new server, a new world will be created. So let's say you've got your world all set up nicely inside this Bedrock level, and then you change that, it's going to start a new world, and it's not going to look in the right place. So that one there is relating to this one here, so make sure they're the same. The level seed is quite important because that is the seed of your world. So let's say you're starting a new world and you want a particular seed, you can put the seed in there. If you're uploading an existing world, it's still a good idea to make sure you put the same seed in there so that when you go to new chunks and new areas that haven't been loaded before in that world, they get loaded with the right seed number. So make sure you put your seed in there. The default player permissions allows you to tell the system whether you want new people to join to be an operator, a visitor, or a member. An operator will allow them to do things like kicking and banning players and running commands. A member is just a normal player, and a visitor is someone that can come along but can't do anything in your world. They can only see it and basically walk around. They can't break anything, open chests or anything like that. So I recommend leaving it on member if you just want to play normally. Texturepack Required is quite an important one. There's a lot of extra texture packs and stuff like that that people can use on their own Minecraft clients that will allow them to do things like finding diamonds and stuff easily. If you want to stop them from being able to use their own resource packs or texture packs while they're on your server, if you change that to true, that will make sure that they can only use any of the texture packs that are built into the server and not their own ones. But we're going to leave that on false for now. The rest of it I wouldn't touch. The content log file enabled makes no difference on Windows 10. The compression stuff is beyond me. I've no idea what it all does. So I would leave all of that well alone. And as long as you're happy with everything else, then save that, close that, and you're pretty much ready to go. So let's go back to our GUI. What things have we got? Well, we've got start, stop, restart, and save. They're the main ones. If we click open folder, that's going to take us to our MCBEPlay folder that we created earlier. And if we look at the view saves, that's going to take us to our saves folder where our backups are going to be. And view logs is going to take us to our log folder where our logs are going to be. Auto rollbacks I would just leave alone for now because that was part of a system that I originally added into this, but then there was a bug in the Bedrock edition of the game that stopped the rollback thing and the saves thing working properly. So leave rollbacks alone, don't touch those for now, but keep a live server is a good one. What that'll do is if the server turns off for whatever reason, because I clicked that, it's kickstarting the server into actually running. and the BDS.exe file wants to run. Norton Antivirus again has come up saying, oh, is this okay? I'm just going to click run program anyway, and you'll see that that will now allow the server to run, and it will start. It won't reload this actual GUI, but as long as this GUI stays open, it will load up the server if the server goes down for whatever reason. So once the server's started, you can stop it by clicking stop. It's going to ask you, are you sure what you want to stop it? And when you do stop it, it's actually going to save it and make a backup of that as well. So now if we click the view saves button, you'll see we have a full backup of our server in there. So this, what is in here, will be exactly the same as what is in our BDS worlds folder. So that one there and that one there should be exactly the same. So it's made a backup whenever you stop it, just so you've always got a backup at that point. The same as when you restart the server, it will always make a backup when you restart the server, and the auto restart system will do that as well. If we start the server again and wait for that to load, we've got server started there, and hit the restart button, it's going to say, are you sure you want to restart the server? That's going to shut the server down, save it, and do exactly the same thing again, and then it will start the server again. So now you can see the server started. If we click on view saves again, you can see we've got another save file in there. We've got that, and it's also, that one's just changed to daily because there's a housekeeping function in here, which we'll look at a little bit later on. The save function will just save the state of the world. It won't create a backup or anything like that while the world is running. It's just literally going to tell the database to just save everything that's got cached and just make sure that it's not going to lose that information. So that's quite a handy one, but you don't really need to press that ever. And the rollback one, we're going to just ignore. The rollback function, it probably doesn't even work at this point. I stopped working on that after there was quite a severe bug with the BDS, which we'll talk about now. Over on the Mojang Jira, which is the bug reporting program that Mojang used for the bugs in the Bedrock edition of the game, I created this bug report here, which basically says that when the game is running, so when your server is actually open and running, if you try and do the save command like they tell you to do in their actual server documentation, it can't access two of the files. There's two main files. One's called the manifest file and one is a log file, and they're both part of the game's database. If we go back into our worlds folder and look in the database folder, you've got this one here, the manifest, and that one there, the log file. Without those two files, the game won't work correctly. Let's see what happens if we get rid of those. We're going to stop the server, and then we're going to delete those two files like that, and then we're going to start the server again and see what happens. You see there was an error there. It came up with an error, and what it's had to do is basically bin that one off and start a whole new world. You can see those database files have disappeared. Let's do that again because that wasn't particularly clear. So let's stop the server. Let's delete the manifest and the log file again, and let's just check that top right corner as that's running. You're going to see in a second it'll go pink, error. It's errored. It can't do anything. The world is broken without that file. It can't load the world. So let's have a look at the log files that's produced because of that error. Got an error log here, and it says error found in BDS output. Warning: the level DB world's bedrock level status is not okay. It failed to open the files. Basically, it can't load the world up if it doesn't have those files. When the server's running and you try and make a backup of it, it can't copy those two files, which is a bug. This is an actual confirmed bug. It works perfectly fine on the Linux version, but it doesn't work on that. And what that means is that we can't automate the backups while the server's running, which means we can only actually take a backup of the server when it's stopped. So when we're doing an automatic restart, which is a big problem. And that is an issue for this server software as a whole, and it's the reason why I spent so many months delaying bringing it out, because I was really hoping they would fix that problem, and they haven't. So do be careful running any of the Bedrock dedicated server systems on the Windows version, because you can only back up your worlds when they are closed and not while they're running. So let's look at how we do that. That takes us back to our BDS options. If we click on that and open up our options file, you'll see there are a number of options below what we looked at before with the file directories that basically allow you to set this thing up to do auto restarts and saves and things like that. The first one we're going to come across is the keep logs option. This is how many days it's going to keep logs of what's going on your server for. It defaults to 14 days, so it's going to keep 2 weeks worth of logs. how many saves it's going to keep. So keep saves is on too. So every time the server stops or restarts, it's going to make a backup, like we said, and those backups are going to accumulate inside of your save folder. If your world's, let's say, getting on to be a gigabyte in size, like the Truly Bedrock server, which we can look at here, that is 921 megabytes in size, you end up with quite a lot of saves that end up stacking up in your saves folder because it's restarting a few times a day. So basically in the options, it's going to say how many days do you want to keep all of the saves for. So that's that one. 2 days we're going to keep every single backup it makes. But after 2 days, we're only going to keep 5 days worth of daily saves. So the system will pick one save or the latest save from each day, and it will save that for up to 5 days. So again, if we go back to the Truly Bedrock save files, you can see that these save files are all between the 12th of April and the 14th of April, so that's 2 days worth of saves, but we've actually got 14 days worth of daily saves because the setting that we've got on Truly Bedrock is to keep the daily saves at 14. So going back to our options file here, we've got 2 days that we keep all of the saves for, and on Truly Bedrock we're keeping 2 weeks worth of daily saves just in case there's any issues, but realistically you're not going to need any more than 5 days. And if you've got low space on your hard drive, I recommend keeping those very low because it will eat space. The Truly Bedrock save files, the backup files alone, take up nearly 30 gigabytes worth of space. So that's just for 14 daily saves and a few saves for the last couple of days. So it will eat your data, and there's no system in this to work out how much space you've got. So if you run out of file space, that's on you. Scrolling down through this options file, you get a warning about that bug that I mentioned and about the autosave system. The system does have an autosave built in, but we're not using it because of that bug. Basically, what I had it doing, that every hour or whatever interval you specified here, the server would just take a save. Now, a save is the server flushing the database. A backup is the server copying those files from the database into our saves folder. So what we had it going on is every 60 minutes it would take a save and it would also copy that save into the backup folder, basically making us an hourly backup. In case there's any issues and we need to roll back, we're going to be able to roll back in hour increments. That does obviously increase the file size, but it's completely pointless a minute because of the bug that we've got. So we've turned the system off, we've turned it to false. When they fix that bug, you'll be able to turn that on to true, and you'll be able to make it save as regularly and make as many backups as you want without having to restart the server. But at the moment we're using this auto restart system, and restarting servers is a good idea anyway because it fixes issues with villager linking, it fixes issues with chunk loading. It's a good idea to regularly restart your server, and we can do that automatically using 2 ways. You can either do it at specific times, and we can add a list of times here. So if you've got auto restart equals time, you can have a list of all the different times of day in 24-hour format, and you can have as many as you want there. And when the server gets to one of those times, it will take it down for a restart and it will take a backup. The other way you can do it is you can change that to interval, and then it will use the restart interval figure, and it will change, and then it will do a restart every whatever you put in there hours. So if you put there every 3 hours, it will restart every 3 hours and do a backup. If you put every 6 hours, it will do it every 6 hours and do a backup. So you can do it that way. On Truly Bedrock, we use the time setting so that we know that every day it's going to go down at those exact times a day, and we can plan our recording our videos around that. We've got the keep alive option here that we mentioned briefly before. If that's set to false and the server stops, it won't come back on again. If that's set to true and there's an issue like the server crashes or becomes unresponsive, it will boot back up again after it's crashed. And the last thing in here is the rollback system. The rollback system is there for if it crashes too many times and it can't load up that world, like that error we got before where it said it can't open the world at all. The rollback system would kick in, find the most recent backup from the saves folder that was actually working, and it would load that into the system and then boot that up, which is a really nice system to have, but I wouldn't recommend using it right now because it's a little bit too aggressive. Sometimes the Bedrock edition of the game will crash, but your world's not actually broken, and if this system detects it's crashed too many times, it will roll it back to a previous version, and if that previous version was 6 hours ago, then you're going to have lost 6 hours worth of progress. So I would strongly advise, do not keep auto rollbacks on. keep it off, and that auto rollbacks is this one here. If we tick that box there and then open our BDS options again and scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that rollbacks turn to true. We'll close that again. To untick that, scroll down and you'll see it's turned to false. So yeah, I would strongly recommend don't click the rollback button and don't turn on auto rollbacks. If you really want to give it a try, go for it, but I would strongly not recommend it. So the other features we've got in here is the reload whitelist button, which is relatively straightforward. If you're using the whitelist and you make changes to it in the text file, not using the console, but if you open the folder and you actually change the whitelist yourself manually, if you hit the reload whitelist button, that will actually reload that into your server, so you don't have to shut down the server. Alternatively, you can use the whitelist feature actually in the console. So if you type in whitelist, add, and then a player, like so, that will add that player to the whitelist. Similarly, we can do the op command, so op, FoxyNoTail, it will op that player. Now, I'm not in the game at the moment, so it can't add that, but if I was in game, it would be able to do that. If you do use this and one of the players has got a space in their name, let's say it was Foxy with a space no-tail, if you don't have the quotes, it will crash the server. And that's not my bug, that's a Mojang bug. Let's see what happens. If we do that, you will see there is an error, the server's crashed, and the keep alive will bring it back up again in a few seconds. There we go, keep alive triggered, server started successfully, the server's back up. So there we go, that's why keep alive is really handy to have. Using the server console commands to remove or add people to the whitelist does it instantly in game. You don't need to click reload whitelist. Permissions doesn't actually work. Again, I think there's a bug with that one. If we click reload permissions, it often comes up with an error, unknown command permissions. But it does say on the actual how to run your Bedrock server, it does say that you can use the permissions command. So permissions list or permissions reload should work, but it doesn't. In fact, I'm going to copy and paste it in there. Permissions list, and it will say unknown command. So that's broken. It's another bug with, that's not my fault. It's Mojang's fault, mate. They need to fix it. You can run any command in the game as part of this. So if you want to teleport a player, you can do TP FoxyNoTail to whatever place you want to go. So without activating cheats on your world, you can run commands in the game from the console without needing to activate cheats and losing your achievements, which is really handy. You can even do stuff like giving people effects or creative mode stuff, or you can turn people into creative mode on here. If I do game mode C, FoxyNoTail, if I was in game, that would turn me into creative mode, even without cheats enabled on the server, so I'm not going to lose achievements. So it's very powerful, it does an awful lot, and that really is about it. That's going to get you up and running servers on the Bedrock edition of Minecraft. The other thing I'm going to show you now, if I actually log into that again, like this, let's log into the world, you will see on that GUI in the bottom right hand corner, it's got members online, 1 FoxyNoTail. A list of members will appear here. Obviously, it's a very small space, and I'm about to get eaten by the zombie. Let's put me in creative mode. So now I'm in the game, I can do game mode C, FoxyNoTail, and you'll see that has set me into creative mode, which is very handy. If you go to view logs now, you'll see in here there's a file called members, and if we open that up, it will give you a list of all of the members that have connected and disconnected from the world. Now this XUID is broken at the moment. That is my fault. I need to fix that. I will do that on a later version. It will give you the XUID of the players that are logging in and logging out, but that's really handy for trying to figure out when people have been online or offline. If you're having issues on your world with griefing or anything like that, it's a really invaluable tool. Similarly, it keeps a log of all of the sessions, so all of the times that the server's been running, you're getting a log of those, and you're getting 2 other logs as well. You're getting a normal log of all of the things that have happened. Now, these are the important things that have happened. There is quite a lot. They will fill up very quickly, those log files, and they will split themselves as well, and they'll remove themselves after a certain amount of time. The error log will show any errors that have come up. If you want more logging, if you want to see more of what's going on, if you go into the options.txt file and you scroll down to verbose logging, if you change that to true, like that, and then you restart your server, so we need to stop the server, we need to close this, close our options file and reload it. Now when we start the server, we're just going to get an absolute ridiculous number of logs. Can you see how this thing at the bottom is just permanently changing. Everything it's doing now, it is now putting into a log. So every single thing that happens, that's going to do. And if we actually look at the log file now, you can see it's actually growing in file size as we're sat here watching it, because it's logging literally everything. So if you really want to find out what's going on, if you're having issues, you've got the option to do that. But I would strongly recommend you only turn on verbose login if you've got an issue when you're trying to find it, because otherwise it's just going to eat your file space on your server. Right, let's stop that again, and let's close that, and let's go back into it, and that will have stopped sending so many logs now. And one final thing to discuss about this system is that once you've got it working and you've got it started, how do you get people into your world to play on it? How do you get people to connect? What do you need to put in? As you can see, when we go to play, let's imagine I was on someone else's computer somewhere else right now. I'm not going to be able to use this IP address because that's the IP address of this computer from this computer. If I was in a local network, I would have to use my local network IP address, which is probably something like 192.168.0 and then a number. But for my external IP address, that's the IP address going to my router. And the way you find that out, if you go to whatismyip.com and hit enter, it will come up with a page which will show you your IP address at the very top. I am going to block this out because I don't want you to see it, because I don't want people accessing my stuff. But that is the IP address that people need to put in. So where it says my public IPv4 is, what you need to do is copy and paste that and put that in your server address there. The port, as we said before, this port here is whatever port it says here. So this one here, look, that port is the port they need to do. And that port there is set in the server properties. So if you change that port in the server properties, it will change there. And then in the game, you will need to change it there as well. If you want to run more than one server from one machine, you are going to need to give each one of them a different port. So let's say your first server, you're going to do on 3.2, maybe do your next server on 4.2, your next server on 5.2, your next server on 6.2, and so on and so forth. And make sure that you change this one to suit as well. So this one's on 3.3, the next one will be on 4.3, the next one would be on 5.3, and so on and so forth. Now, you don't have to use those ports. I just find it easier to do it that way. And it seems to work quite well for me, where I'm running 2 or 3 different servers off one machine, which works really well. So yeah, that's how you get your IP address. Anyway, that is enough from me. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and showcase. I know it was long-winded, but hopefully you got all the information you needed from that. If you enjoyed it, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more informative and useful tutorials from me, FoxyNoTail. Anyway, I'll see you all later. Have a good one. Bye.